This is our second year partnering with Womenetics on the Advancing Aspirations Global Scholarship Essay Contest, and that is a mouthful. And I've practiced it many times, but I'm sure I will not get it right once today. We recognize the power of young people in creating positive change in their communities and for women. And through the scholarship, we want to continue encouraging that leadership through the next generation of leaders. The essay's topics for this year coincide with what's being discussed here today. Creating shared value, women's influence and innovation, and women's impact on corporate ethics. You can read the essays of these young women at womenetics.com. And I'm going to introduce them today, and also I want you to notice that they are modeling some of the jewelry that you can buy outside the doors here that have been made by the women of Africa. So first we have Yasmin Abu Baker. She is from, and my peers in Minneapolis, forgive me, Shakopee, Minnesota. Did I get it right?
Shakopee.
I did get it right. She's a sophomore at New York University, majoring in finance and international business. She hopes to study abroad in Ghana in order to sharpen her global leadership skills. Her essay topic focused on creating shared value by supporting ethical mineral sourcing in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Next is Megan Matt from Montvale, New Jersey. Megan is a junior at the University of Chicago, majoring in economics. She will be studying in Barcelona next year, and she wants to explore how Europe's recession has affected women's rights. Her essay topic suggested corporate policies to increase diversity, creativity, and women's engagement. Next is Shruti Shah, who joined us very early this morning. She had to finish an exam at 10 o'clock last night and got on a plane at 6:10 this morning to be here, so thank you. She's from Orlando, Florida, studying finance and political science at the University of Florida. She's president of Florida Women in Business, and her involvement in that organization has fueled her position on women's equality. In her essay, she explored the innovative contributions women executives have brought to leading companies in the United States and how to foster a culture of creativity. Next is Alyssa Smith. Alyssa is from Newhall, California. She's a sophomore at Loyola Marymount College.
You got it.
Ah, thank you. She told me I got it. She's a marketing major, and she hopes to diversify the images that consumers see in advertising in order to redefine the definition of beauty. Alyssa's scholarship essay explored the benefits of women's leadership in major corporations, specifically in relation to increased innovation. And Cheyenne Tessere, close I hope, from Boston. Cheyenne is a freshman majoring in international affairs and Arabic at George Washington University. Her goal is to return to sub-Saharan Africa for a semester to study rural social enterprise. In her essay, Cheyenne explored how entrepreneurship in Nigeria would benefit the country's female population and community at large. So, while you're enjoying your lunch, I have a couple of questions for these folks, okay? So innovation is key to creating shared value. And several of you researched and wrote about the effect women leaders have on spearheading innovation in Fortune 500 companies. Would you want to share some of the most notable examples you found through your research? Who wants to go first? Megan?
I'll take it.
Okay,
sure.
Go for it.
So my essay was about building the business case for diversity on a company-by-company level. And one of the really interesting strategies that I researched was building women's networks at these companies. And I think the really interesting part about this strategy is that it's a win-win for companies. They help develop their talent so they have more engaged and more likely to stay top female talent. And the female employees themselves are more engaged, they're more happy with their jobs, and it fosters a culture of innovation.
Very good.
And then also in my essay that I wrote about is how women in top leadership leads to innovation, as we were just talking about. And so a really important factor that I found was an organizational health index done by McKinsey & Company showed that women leaders, or businesses that had over 3 women leaders, top executives in their business companies had better, higher bottom lines and overall satisfaction with the company. And I found that to be really interesting, and I found, well, why is that? It's so important to have that. And so with this importance, it's really it's necessary for women to be in top leadership positions to not only help the innovation levels of your company, but also to increase bottom lines, which is what everyone in the end really wants, right?
That's right. Shruti?
I also explored diversity in the workplace and how this will increase creativity and innovation in companies. And one of the things that I found that really it starts with the company and the leadership deciding that they think that innovation and creativity and diversity is important, and that diversity contributes to innovation. And after the leadership has decided this goal, I really found that it was a three-pronged approach. Recruitment, and then mentorship, and then leadership. Recruitment, where especially with the cross-functional teams and that kind of stuff that's really prominent in companies nowadays, it's important to have women of all backgrounds, of different experiences, different majors, and they would all come together in this company and they would work to foster diversity and innovation. And then mentorship, like Megan mentioned, having a network of powerful women in a company that support each other. And then leadership is allowing these women who have worked hard to reach higher positions in the company.
Great, that's fantastic. So Yasmin and Cheyenne, you both proposed initiatives to create economic value in two African nations, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Nigeria. Do each of you want to share some of what you suggested?
Yeah, I'll start. I wrote on the Democratic Republic of Congo. One of the biggest issues they've been having is different militia groups coming into their country and trying to take control of their mines and all the natural resources that they have. The Democratic Republic of Congo has 80% of the untapped natural resources in the world, and a lot of these resources are used in consumer electronics. So as the need for more tablets and more phones has evolved, so is the need for all these minerals. And one of the issues that I found is these militia groups come into villages, they rape all the women, they burn down these villages, and they take the kids, so it's really disrupting the whole household. And a lot of different companies have decided we want to remain ethically pure and we don't want to even touch Congo and we don't want to get any minerals from there. And when the Dodd-Frank Act was passed recently, all United States companies that were involved in minerals had to essentially just rate every single supplier they get minerals from, and in order to stay on the positive side and not have to deal with any fines, companies have just decided to avoid the Congo altogether. So that has really hurt artisan miners and families that do rely on good and ethical sourcing. So I basically proposed an act that was similar to the Kimberley process, which was with blood diamonds, and kind of something we use in airports every day. It's basically a way to kind of bag and tag all the minerals that come from these non-militia group controlled mines, clean mines, and essentially when things come out of the ground, they can just put into these bags, tagged, sealed, and just, it's a great way to maintain a pure and clean supply chain, and it's a good way to have ethically produced electronics. And I think that in this time period, that's very important for people when they are looking at companies and where to buy a phone, like, is Apple pure? Is Samsung pure? And that's something that I think all people are beginning to take notice of.
Very good, great. Cheyenne? Yeah, very good.
Okay.
It's on.
I focused on a multilateral approach to changing the environment, and specifically in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, in which sex trafficking is such an issue. Now, the problem with research on sex trafficking in northern Nigeria is that most groups focus on a criminal approach to solving sex trafficking. In other words, how do we persecute the criminals involved in this? I looked at it in a different sense as an economic issue. And why would a girl fall into this situation? And one thing I focused on was the statistic that 38% of young girls in Nigeria before they can graduate high school are impregnated. And furthermore, only 4% of girls do graduate from high school in northern Nigeria. So one approach of the many I focused on was, I guess, the question, why aren't contraceptives available in northern Nigeria? And I would actually like to just jump to an anecdote of my own life and my time in Senegal, where I was living in a very, very small village, and I was the only foreigner there. But at one point, this French woman with a women's reproductive rights NGO came into my village, and she came to my tea circle and talked about contraceptives. Everyone in my tea circle, young men and young women like myself, were very receptive to this speech. They wanted to know more. They wanted samples, but and they were very receptive when she tried to give out samples. They accepted them gladly. And the next day, I was really surprised when she plopped herself down on my couch and she said, "I don't understand. Everyone was so receptive to the speech last night, but I just visited the Case de Santé, the health stop, and the condom supplies were overflowing." She said there was no need. And I said, "Well, do you know who runs the health stop? He's a village elder. I asked, would you ever go to your boss and ask for a condom?" and she thought about it, and she said, "Well, no, I never thought about that." And she said, "Well, why can't they just sell condoms in the boutiques?" And I said, "Yeah, that's a really great question. Why not?" So I think that's why CSV is so important in the developing world, is because it's common sense to know what markets are demanding. It's common sense to ask, how do people want to buy products? And that's why aid hasn't worked in so many circumstances.
Very good, great. So it's obvious that all of you have a global mindset, which is vital to creating shared value. What does it mean to you to be a global citizen? Who wants to take that one? Megan?
Sure. So I think a huge part of it is cultural fluency. I don't specifically mean learning 100 languages so you can speak to anyone you meet when you're traveling, but just being educated about the place you're visiting, understanding the values. I think Cheyenne really touched on that well, actually, is having just this understanding of the different ways that people live. So being fluent in other cultures.
Great. Melissa?
So oftentimes when I hear the word global citizen, I think of people going overseas and addressing issues that need addressing. But oftentimes they forget about people here in our immediate neighborhoods. And to me, that's really important, because what we can do is look at our immediate neighborhoods, see what's the problem. And then once you identify the problem, you can parallel that with something overseas. So it doesn't mean that you just have to stick with one area. But I do believe that when we go overseas, we often forget about the people who are struggling in our own areas. For example, I volunteer at a domestic violence shelter where I live in Los Angeles. And so by doing so, I have discovered that these women who have been battered and abused, they are so incredible, but they just don't have the resources that they need to advance their lives. And so if we find problems out here or anywhere that we live, we can parallel that with domestic violence in Afghanistan or wherever that may be. And once we do that, we can find a solution that will be beneficial to both sides of the party. And then we can go from there and advance those women so that they can come on board to your businesses and initially and in the end advance your company.
Great. And Shruti, I'm going to pose this question to you. So as a global citizen today, how do you hope to incorporate that mindset into your life and into your career as you go forward?
That's a great question. I studied abroad last summer, actually, in Salzburg, in Austria, and that was something that was completely different for me. One, I didn't know any German, so I took some German there. I wasn't familiar at all with how Austria is, how the European Union works, how people communicate differently, how they act differently in Central European countries. And so going there, learning how different cultures are differ from ours, it was actually a really wonderful and rewarding experience. And it made me realize that that's something I would like to do in the future, that I would like to travel internationally, that I would like to work internationally or work with international clients. And I hope to incorporate that in my future career by being a part of a company that will allow me to do that. By either being working in the State Department as a political science major, that's my dream, but also even working with an international firm, a firm that has global operations that will allow me to learn a different language or to become familiar with a different culture.
Great, great. Well, I think I probably speak for all of you when I say that I find it fascinating to sit here with the five of you and listen to how you view the world and your opinions and how we can affect change. So thank you very much for your commitment to the contest and for your presence here today and your thoughts. Thank you. Okay, and now it's time to announce the winner, and Elizabeth is going to join me here on stage. Okay. The envelope, please. Let me get this here.
And I haven't looked.
Okay, so.
I want to just say one thing, though. This will be the 4th year in a row that U.S. Ambassador Milan Vivir has picked the winner of the Global Scholarships. So this is very exciting for us to be able to continue that relationship that endures over this amount of time. So Kimberly,
Okay,
take
so
it
ladies
away.
and gentlemen, on behalf of U.S. Bank, Womenetics, and Ambassador Milan Vivir, the winner of the 2013, I have to think before I say it, Advancing Aspirations Global Scholarship is Megan Matt. Congratulations, Megan.